Hello, HERkys Voice listeners. I'm excited to share with you that the University of Iowa Athletic Department will celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX, hosting HERkys Walk on Saturday, May 7th at our University of Iowa Francis X. Kreitzmeyer track. This event will celebrate 50 years of Title IX and all of those who have been committed to providing equitable access to sport for girls and women. The 50-minute walk will be accompanied by activities that educate and celebrate 50 years of Title IX. The event will also be a kickoff to a year-long celebration of 50 years of women's athletics at the University of Iowa. For more information on HERkys, the Hawk Walk, our HERkys community, and events surrounding 50 years of Title IX and 50 years of Iowa women's athletics, visit hawkeyesports.com/HERkys. And now, back to this week's episode of HERkys Voice.
This is HERkys Voice, a conversation with special Hawkeye guests focusing on the stories and people behind Hawkeye Athletics. Now, here's the host of HERkys Voice, Iowa women's tennis coach, Sasha Schmid.
Welcome to HERkys Voice. It's an exciting time for Iowa volleyball as we begin a new era under our new head coach, Jim Barnes' leadership for Iowa volleyball. He and I had the chance to sit down recently and have a conversation where I was able to learn more about his family, his coaching path and journey to Iowa, and his coaching philosophy and what his goals are in the first season where he is the head coach for Iowa volleyball. Take a listen to Jim Barnes. Welcome to HERkys Voice. I have been looking forward to this conversation. I get to hear some new information about one of my newest colleagues here at Iowa. Jim Barnes, our new head volleyball coach, is joining me today. Jim, welcome to HERkys Voice.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I'm just grateful to be here and looking forward to the adventure here.
It is an adventure because I feel like I've gotten some wonderful new staff members, you and Clarissa and Jeff Garbett back, and I've gotten to have all of you join me. And although I get to kind of see you in head coaches meetings and cross each other in the halls, what's great about being able to spend some time is I really get to hear your story. And I personally love hearing where each person's life story. So where are you from? Tell me a little bit about your parents, where you grew up, right, and kind of your early years.
Well, I'll try not to bore you too much, but grew up in Louisiana, so it's a long way from here, but there's a lot of similarities now that I've been here. The people are very similar. They're hardworking, very social people that with a lot of pride. And so that's how I've been able to relate since getting here. But I grew up in Louisiana in the South in a big Cajun family. So I'm used to a lot of family, and really that's how I got my start in volleyball. We love volleyball within our family, and ever since I was little, we were the rare family that played volleyball out in the yard every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Where in Louisiana?
Lake Charles, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So we're in the hill of the boot, it's a big Cajun culture with, everyone has big families and food, and I grew up on a block where everybody was outside all the time and in each other's house. Thought that was normal till I moved away. But yeah, no doors locked kind of situation. So it was a great way to grow up.
And interesting from a recreational kind of informal volleyball experience, not necessarily the structured AAU introduction.
Right. My dad loved the game. He watched it on TV. They used to put some men's on TV, Pepperdine. I remember being a little kid, and he's watching that. And my dad's the most competitive person I've ever met to this day. And I've met a lot of competitive people. And we would be out in our family, and my dad was all about structure as well. We would have teams. He would have brackets, and we would play tournaments all the time. Every family outing was a structured 2-day event of volleyball.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we did that through our, all through our youth. And as we got older and they got older and we started really hurting them with the volleyball, it went to ping pong. So they didn't have to jump. But it was always a competitive sporting element within our family, and volleyball was the king of it.
When did you start to use that in a more organized way then? Move on from the family tournaments?
Well, he played on a men's team, and he would let me practice with them. And then he signed me up well before my age and didn't get my age right, but so that I could play with them. So I'm playing with these older gentlemen when I was 14, 15 and needed to be 17. And through that process, I met a lot of other players and a lot of players in the Houston area, and started becoming friends with them and started playing, through that circuit, and then got to play in college with a good group of guys as well, through that area. So it started going through that, that way. But it all started with my dad's introduction of it.
And where did you eventually journey to college?
Well, I went to college there in my hometown of McNeese State University. Everybody grew up. That's where we went to school, and so I was on the men's club team, and I eventually became the coach player. So I was playing and coaching the team, and I played beach too. I played beach all summer, and I would play from coast to coast in all the tournaments you could find. And I would have just done that my whole life if they'd have let me. But in that course, I met a person who got hired as the head coach at McNeese, and I remember in a tournament, he beat me in the finals, and he goes, "Hey, you're going to school. You want to be my assistant?" And I shook hands under the net, and I became a college coach in 1990 at a beach tournament and became his assistant and was his assistant for 6 years.
Interesting. When you were playing, what did you love about volleyball? What position did you play? What did you gravitate towards in the game?
Well, we grew up playing everything, and I still, wish kids would play everything and not specialize till later in life. But we played everything. I mean, from golf to football to basketball. Baseball was a big sport for me. I pitched a lot of my life. But when I played volleyball, it was the combination of smarts and teamwork that I enjoyed the most. You make your teammates better through the process, and you had to be really intelligent. It wasn't just a physical sport. And so I love that balance. I love the teamwork of it. And when that bites you, all players say it, you just don't want to do anything else. But, from a young age, I sort of gravitate into that. But baseball, I pitched a lot too.
When you became the coach, what was that transition like for you?
It was so different. I was young. I was still in college when he asked me to be the assistant. Back then, they didn't pay you much, and I was just happy to be in the gym. And but I got lucky. The person I learned under Lee McBride, who was the head coach there for a lot of years after I left, to this day is one of the top 5 coaches I've ever been around in any sport. And it just so happened I got to be mentored by a person that, number one, was a credible person, human being, taught me a lot about just being a good person. And then his discipline in the gym, was just amazing. And I, in those 6 years, I learned so much. And I was 26 years old at this point in the 6th year, and I had never interviewed for a job. So I decided I'd go interview for a head coaching job that opened up an hour away at Lamar University. And I went and interviewed, and somehow they offered me the job at 26. So I became a head coach pretty young.
And so was that a completely different experience moving into that head coaching role?
Oh, I wasn't ready, and I had no idea they would hire me. The 6 years did prepare me for it, and I learned so much through that process. And I remember his advice, hey, trust what you know and go, just go do it, and trust what you've learned. And I took that into this job as a young kid. And in the first season I got there was 5 players on the team. And I had to bring in like 9 players, and we went 20-11 that first year. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can really do this. And in fact, I thought it was easy at the moment, and realized I didn't know what I didn't know. But we took off the next year. We were picked 6th in the league, and we won the league. And so I'm at 27, 28 now, and won a conference championship, and just thought, okay, maybe this is something I'm not just a player, I'm a coach. And that's when I started turning it into, I feel like, a real coach.
I love coaching with coaches, and especially when they can reflect back on their career.
Yes. Yeah.
What were the things that stood out to you, if you can remember back on that time, moving into being a head coach? What were the things that surprised you, or what were the things that were challenging? And also, what do you think helped you bring that team to that level of success?
Yeah, I learned a lot, because when I got into it, it was all about volleyball winning, and I learned that that's not what it's all about. And at that time, I started really paying attention to how I related with my players and how the impact we had within relationships. And I saw how much that had a bigger impact than just talking about winning. So we learned how to treat each other the right way on and off the court. And that's where I started seeing a whole different side to sport, was that if we treat each other well, and I can be that example and my staff can be that example, it starts becoming a real functional family. And then that's when we start handling all the tough stuff that starts coming down the road, is because we trust each other and we know each other. That kind of stuff I didn't think about going into sports. It was just play hard and hustle. And that element helped me get the team to play hard and hustle. My dad's toughness, again, I was in the Army as well. I never met a drill sergeant I thought that was meaner than my father. Tougher, I should say, than my father. So I knew that side of it, but I learned the balance of treating them as a person. And when I learned that, I really felt like I created that environment that could sustain winning. Yeah.
What did the continuous years at Lamar look like for you? And when did you decide that it was time for another change?
Well, I was 6 years there, and we won 3 conference championships, and it was a great experience. Like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I kept it simple. We were really fundamental, and the players, came every day and worked hard, and it was a simple time, honestly. And we got good kids in there that wanted just to play hard and be good teammates, and we won. And we won the conference. We won the championship again in let's say 2001, and then I got a call from Wyoming if I wanted to come up and interview, and so I said sure. So they flew me up there, and I took the job there at University of Wyoming. And
did you know someone? Was there a connection there, or was that just an opening and they knew that you were having success in Lamar? I'm always wondering how those connections get made.
It's weird how these doors open and you don't know where it comes from. Sometimes it usually is from connections. It wasn't at that time when I interviewed at Lamar. They didn't know who I was. I interviewed against 2 female All-Americans who played at the school, so I thought there's no chance I'm getting this job. And then they offered me the job. And then at Wyoming, it was a cold call from them just saying, hey, we like what you've been doing. Would you like to come interview? And I just remember I didn't know where Wyoming was on the map. I opened it up and I went there and looked at it, and I saw the support and took the leap. And, some people go, are you crazy? And some of my choices like that, I go, I'm just not fearful. I want to go there and have the chance to, be at a higher level and build a team. And so we were able to do that there. We improved that team. In just 2 years, Baylor called, and it was the same. It was a little different in that regard. Terry Pettit, who's a Hall of Fame coach who built Nebraska volleyball, he was in the area and watched me coach the Wyoming team. And apparently, I didn't know this. He put me on a short list of coaches he wanted to get to know. And when Baylor called him to help hire the next coach at Baylor, he called me and said, hey, I want to talk to you about the Baylor job. And just like that, Baylor offered me the job there at Baylor.
And which year was your first year at Baylor?
It was 2004.
Okay, 2004. So that's quite, you had a lot happening in there between 2001 with the last conference championship at Lamar to Wyoming to Baylor.
Right.
And Wyoming, interestingly, has ties to Gary Barta and Barbara Burke. So that kind of runs through a few people here in this athletic department.
Yes.
So Baylor, to talk a little bit about that experience, you're now in a Power 5 conference and enormous resources and a lot of tradition at that university. Walk us through that transition, and do you feel like at any of these stops, did the institutions have to alter the way you coached at all?
Right. Well, you describe Baylor now, but at that time in 2004, Baylor was in the deepest, darkest part of their history. If you look back by there, it was the Branch Davidians with, that the building caught on fire and the FBI, these people died at the time. David Koresh was all part of that. So it was a really dark time when I moved there. The volleyball program was at its lowest as well. And so it was another question I got from friends, are you crazy? And I go, no, I just see opportunity within all that. And so we went in at a tough time and built that program. And in our 4th or 5th year, we were in the Sweet 16 with that team. And it was just it was tough in the beginning, but the building that team and getting that place right, just getting the team right and bringing in the right kids. And we were able to get to that Sweet 16 and turn into a top 20 program there. It was a tremendous experience, and I learned so much, through that time. Now I started realizing all the things I didn't know about coaching when you're challenged like that.
What would you kind of summarize those as?
There's so much, every human being is so different, and you can't treat everyone the same. You've got to be able to be, extremely fair, and at the same time, learn how to make the best out of each person. I think some people push people aside or players aside thinking they can't make them better. I had to learn to be a better coach and make every kind of player better. And then within the game itself, I couldn't just do what the other teams were doing. We were trying to do the same systems, but they're doing it with better athletes. So we weren't winning early, and I go, okay, we have to do some things there. So it stretched me within my offense and defense. We had to be way more imaginative and way more aggressive. And when we started getting leverage on that aspect, we were able to start beating teams by just playing the game a little differently.
How do you become more aggressive in creative in volleyball? How does that look like?
Yeah, offensively and defensively, we can do different things to be more aggressive. And offensively, when you look at our game, it's mostly attacked on the outsides.
Yes.
Where we attack always, we're in the top 5 in the country attacking up the middle. So we attack differently. So teams have to prepare differently for us because they're going, oh, there's that Baylor team, there's that Tulane team that always attacks the middle, and we're much more aggressive from a different angle. Okay. And so we come at teams differently in that regard, and that makes it different. And defensively is where we're much more aggressive. We put blockers in different areas. We do a lot to touch and slow down balls, and we change up our defense depending on what the other hitters do. So we're not just playing it one way, which a lot of teams do. We throw it like in football. We're throwing blitzes. We're throwing, two-man coverage. We're just mixing it up a lot to make them uncomfortable. And when we started figuring out how to do that and how to signal to our team during the games to make automatic changes without waiting for timeouts, these were things outside the box that I started giving us leverage. And I saw it at the Power 5 level. Okay, we can do some things that are different.
When you're recruiting, how are you finding your players, given all the things you just described there, that type of versatility, the type of coachability? I can imagine this takes a certain player that is flexible to be able to change from maybe what their club coaching was.
They get excited, though, when I start describing it because it's different.
Sure.
And number one, middles want to come play for us because, again, we set our middles more than anybody in the country. I started getting better and better middles because they could see the numbers were so inflated because of that middle attack. So that helped us get a little edge in recruiting that way. But I think the key to it all is within my staff, I go, hey, we're only going to get kids that love the game and love their teammates. Those are two of the most important parts that we're looking at recruiting-wise, and that's what we promise our players, that every day you come to practice, you're going to have a teammate next to you who love the game and love their teammates and going to get after it every day. If it's raining or if it's sun shining, it doesn't matter. They're going to show up every day. And I don't think people understand how important that is. If you're going to win consistently, you've got to have that mindset consistently. So we've passed on great athletes, again, who only show up when they want to. We look for those athletes, again, who love the game and want to come play hard every day.
So as you go through your experience at Baylor, you've got one other stop that you eventually get to, which is at Tulane. Walk through that transition and that process, and when was the right time to kind of take on a new challenge?
Yeah, we're from Louisiana. Me and my family, my wife was born in New Orleans, and so we had a big family there, and had two daughters in high school. So it was a really good place for us at that time, and Tulane had been struggling as well, and so it was a great place for, again, our family and another rebuild. But in the first year, we were the most improved team in the country. When we took over, we had a lot of seniors, and I wondered how that would go, and they jumped on board right away. They made the transition extremely easy, and we were able to be successful pretty early, and through that stretch. It was great for my kids to be back around family, and then finish up high school, and now they're in college, and no longer we're empty nesters as of recently. So it's amazing how time flies by so fast, but we were able to build that program and do it around family. And then some of the ties you talk about, knowing people, like you said, Barbara and Gary were at Wyoming. So, they contacted me and we started talking a little bit about Iowa and drawing on what I did at Baylor in very similar situations in different regards, but building it into being a top 20 program. And I think that's what helped me, is that I was able to show that we were able to do that, and that's what we want to do here.
Jim, where do you find the energy to continually have to start programs and feel like you're in a building process?
Yeah, I think, you got this perspective on looking at it. Every team, I'm building them. So I don't look at it and every team's different. Every time you bring in 1 or 2 players or 5 or 6, the team's a different dynamic. The girls on the team are a year older. So it's a completely different team. It doesn't matter if you're still at that school or a different school. Now I'm getting to know them a little more off the court, here. But the challenge is very similar. I think people overdo it as far as a rebuild, all this work. It is a lot of work. But I'm doing the same things I would be doing at Tulane right now, as far as building our team within our discipline, our system, our off court, how we treat each other. All of it's the same. And I've learned a lot, what to do and what not to do along the way. And I'm hoping I can be the best coach for this team here as we're rebuilding here.
When you had the opportunity to look at Iowa and take a look at whether or not this was a good move for you and your wife, what was it about this program, Iowa City, this university, that intrigued you and made you want to be able to, become a Hawkeye? Right.
And I think some coaches look at it and some of them go, nope, that's not something that I would want to do. And some market put a star next to it. This is a program that could be a gold mine kind of mindset. And that's what this was for me. When I looked at it, the boxes all checked on, this hasn't happened here yet, but should and can. And so, when you look at the school, the Big Ten, the ability to recruit, there's players in this region, in this state, and the passion for it. People love volleyball in the region, and if this team is being successful, we'll get the support on game days, and all that's there. And there's not a ton of places in the volleyball world that you have all those boxes and that you can check. So to me, this is an absolute, that it can be a premier top 20 program. And to me, if you're a coach, how can that not be on the top of your list? So to me, this is a no-brainer. Now, we're going to get there. It's going to be a lot of work. It hasn't been proven here that it can be done, at least not consistently. But that's what we want to prove. To me, that's just part of the challenge. And I get players that want that as well. When we're recruiting right now, which we're doing a ton, I'm talking to players go, yeah, I want to be the one that goes there and helps them get into being a top 25 program and making it happen at Iowa.
Thinking about specifically the University of Iowa volleyball program and getting to top 25, it's an interesting situation because you most certainly get your opportunities in this elite league to play against some great competition. But then I can imagine it's that balance between enjoying the opportunity to get out and play against the best in so many top 10 programs in the nation, and then managing that against kind of getting beaten up and figuring out how you get a team to learn how to win. Walk me through that part of your process.
Well, you just nailed the challenge of this job, the number one challenge, and I learned that at Baylor. And again, I'm hoping my history and what I learned can, again, help this team and help this program for what the toughest thing I think in coaching, now that I've been through it for 25 years as a head coach, is what you just described, is that sure, you can make them better, they can maybe win a game, and then you get pounded, you get beat by these top teams. How do you get your team off the mat and then beat the teams you can beat? And that's really tough as a coach to do, and something I had to learn at Baylor. We would win 2 games and everyone was excited, then lose 4 in a row and not even be close, just get killed. And then that next match you can win if you play well, but the team is so beaten down they don't. And that was, to me, the toughest thing about coaching as far as game day, learning to teach a team how to overcome that. And it starts all the way back from day one. How do we handle adversity? How do we overcome it? We handle it as a team. We're positive and constructive on how we do things. We problem solve daily. And we get that mindset that it isn't that we failed, it's how do we work through it So, right on the other side, I use this term often, right on the other side of a challenge or a loss is treasure. That when you learn how to work through it, you take that next step. And then you start beating that team and you start getting leverage and it starts happening. And when that belief starts happening, that's when you start winning more than you lose. And now you're in the middle of the pack and you're now fighting to be there at the top of the pack. It's the toughest thing in coaching you just described. And that's what I've got to get everyone here to understand as we go through it.
It's one of those things that is incredibly emotionally exhausting too as a coach, because you're finding that balance between honoring, I hate in some way moral victories, perhaps
right.
taking a set off somebody, getting to 24-26, but then also not accepting being close.
Yeah.
But also challenging them, but not challenging them in a way that we're constantly never satisfied as coaches with what you're doing.
Right.
I mean, I've been there countless times.
Yes.
And so
this is what makes you good at this, because you understand the coaching world and the, all the challenges so well, because you're asking the best questions in this regard. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic, and
Yes.
one I think that is something that a coach wrestles with at 3 a.m. on a daily basis during the season.
Yes. And my answer to that isn't usually a fan favorite. My answer to that, and that I learned, that took a while because I'm so competitive and I hate to lose. That's the worst thing I have about, when I talk about a weakness, I hate to lose to a really bad degree. But I learned because of that, and I learned how to coach my players up through that. And this is the thing, and fans don't like it. It's just a game. And I get them to see the different perspective of it. It isn't your value. A loss doesn't say what your value is as a person. Mm-hmm. And when I get players to understand it is just a game. It's just a puzzle. We've got to work through the puzzle and figure it out. And when we figure it out, we go to the next one. And until we figure it out, we just keep working until we get it. And it's just a game. And so it's perspective, because some people treat this as life or death. Mm-hmm. And we want to win. But when you learn that it is truly just a game and it isn't your value, and your players believe that I believe that about them, that they're much more important than just a game, that has a lot of power in it. It gets perspective, and you can handle the defeat better and the wins better, because the wins can be just as, they call that rat cheese or whatever. Yeah. That can be just as bad because they think they're better than they are. Mm-hmm. Again, you are better than the game. You're more important than the game. It's perspective, and that'll help you handle those losses, because I had to learn that more than anyone, because I take losses very hard. Yeah.
I always say I wish I enjoyed the wins as much as I am miserable in the
Amen.
Losses. It's just a hard balance. I'm constantly talking myself through that. Right. So, in listening to you speak, what are the pieces to figure out these puzzles that you're going to be encountering? What are the pieces of the program now that you're most important focusing on putting into place? I think in terms of your staffing and your makeup of your roster.
Yeah, we talk about rebuild. This is where you are doing something a little different. Is we're putting together our staff. We're bringing in new players to fill the team. But as we go through it, I've got our staffs here, and I'm really proud of.
Tell me a little bit about your staff.
Yeah, Brian has been with me for the last 7 years, and so I was happy. He had some head coaching opportunities, and I got him to come with me and help me do it here. And he's just a tremendous coach. Our players just relate to him really well. He's a great defensive coach as well. It allows me to focus more on the offense, and I think we play off each other extremely well, and he's a terrific recruiter. So that was the first move. I wanted to make sure I got him here with me. And then Aubrey Marcellus, who's our assistant coach, she's just a tremendous coach, really smart. You look at her grade, she blew me and Brian away on her college grade. She's just really smart, first in her class and everything. Was a great player. Has a lot of recruiting experience as well. And so the girls, she's going to mentor them. She's a terrific human being, and she's going to do a great job, in helping them on and off the court as well. So we got a terrific staff, and we've been, recruiting and filling this team, through the spring, and that's been the biggest steps outside the court. Now, inside the court with their team, it's been about building this team, the teamwork, them understanding how to show up every day, how to treat each other, how to go to work every day, and that's extremely important for them to figure out this spring. And as the rest of our players come in this summer, they're going to help us teach them, and that's how you build it.
What's your first couple interactions with the new team look like? What's your message to them, and how do you tackle that in terms of like establishing that relationship and that trust with a group of players that you didn't recruit? Right. Not to say that you wouldn't have, but they just happened to be here, and you both have found each other.
Right. Yeah, you open the doors and you go, hey, I know you don't know me, I don't know you, but we're going to talk about everything. We can talk about everything so that we can build, the formula to having a great team. And I put up the formula. I go, here's the secret to being a great team. And we wear it on our shirts. It's LTCS. And so they start figuring out what that all means. And it's basically the foundation of teamwork. It's love, trust, commitment, sacrifice. And so every day we learn what that truly means. And I go, look, now I'm telling you guys, like, love each other. Are you serious? How we get to that step. Yeah. And I go, look, the first step to that is knowing each other. We got to know each other on and off the court. And when you know someone, you're able to build that kind of bond, because we're never going to get to trust if you guys don't truly know each other. And so we start those steps. Each step's extremely important. And at this level, everything matters. Nothing can be put aside. You've got to build every step of love, trust, commitment, and sacrifice to be a team that on game day does do that. They're committed, they sacrifice for one another, and then you can handle the losses and you can handle the wins that we talked about.
So I'm sure you've looked at the team last year and looking at your recruiting pieces. What do you hope in your first year out of the gate here as a Hawkeye? What are your envisions for what you would like to see happen next season?
It's simple, and I told the team this, we're going to be a real team. I don't know how many wins that's going to make happen, but this is going to be a real team that has each other's back, because I've heard it from the players come in, they didn't have that kind of atmosphere, and we're going to fix that right away. They're going to come to work every day. They're going to have trust in their teammates every day, that they got each other's back. The coaches got each other's back. I'm a player's coach. I'm here for them. It's not about my ego. It's not about me getting wins. It's about us being a true team, and whatever that results in, I'll be happy with. That's the first step to getting there. And they're realizing that, I think, on a daily basis. What I mean about that is that everything you do matters. How you work, how you talk, the energy you provide every day, that builds trust. And when you got trust, then we'll really get committed, and then we'll really sacrifice and be all in.
In April, you get the chance to actually coach, starting with a few spring scrimmages, as I understand. Tell us a little bit about that. And, that's got to be exciting. First time really in a competitive situation in the Hawkeye uniform. Yeah,
it's a great development to be able to, put in your system, work with the team, and then go test it out on some scrimmages that, again, they don't count. They're not part of your record, so you don't have that pressure. But it's a big time of development, because everybody, talks about the falls when we play our season, but our season for us starts in January when we're building towards that. And in April, we get to play 3 or 4 scrimmages. And so we'll have that on the first Saturday of the first 3 weeks of April.
I love it. And not at home, I guess.
Right. We are traveling to all 3, and getting here a little late and fixing the schedule, is a challenge, but we were able to get the games in. And so we're going to Iowa State, UNI, and Illinois State, close places that we can go and scrimmage and build a team that way. So that'll be a blast, when we get to that point. Right now we're in the gym doing step 1, step 2, step 3. By that time, we'll be ready to play some.
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Xtreme Arena. What do you think about that building and that facility, and seeing, a vision of your team competing in that exciting development area within Coralville and Iowa City?
Yeah, I've gotten that question a number of times. I go, as a coach and someone, who wants to just get our team to win, my first thing is whatever it takes to help us win. All right, so that building is new. We can recruit to it. It's beautiful. But how do we get it to help us win? That's what I'm concerned with. I don't care if we're playing in a dungeon. Does it help us win? And in that building, there's a lot of things I think we can do that hasn't been done yet to create that environment. And when you look at volleyball in this league, you walk into a gym, the fans are right on the floor. They're huge crowds, but they're able to get that close to the floor and be a part of the game. And that's what I hope to get there. The building's beautiful. It's a perfect size for volleyball. And if we can, figure out ways of getting the fan engagement and getting it close to the court and where they feel a part of the action, that's where I've seen fans help you win. So that's my goal, is just try to get them to be a part of it.
And also to do that, we're going to need to pack Xtreme Arena.
Yes.
And, one of the fun things about HERkys Voice is we've got some wonderful Hawkeye listeners that support all of our sports. Tell our listeners a little bit, Jim, about how they can help you win in Xtreme Arena and what maybe next season looks like for you.
Yeah, I think one thing they'll enjoy is just, like I said, they'll see a team that's going to put it all out there and play hard for one another and hustle. And I think fans really appreciate that, especially the real volleyball fans. They'll get out there and see the first steps of building a winner here. And we want people to come out and be a part of that. And if you're a bandwagoner later, that's okay, but I'd rather you jump on early and be a part of the process, because that's where I think for fans, when you really get into it and you get to know the players, that's where the real fun is getting to be a part of that process. So, for them to come out, and again, we're going to try to get you closer to the floor. We're going to try to do things to let you be a part of the action, and when you get to see the steps firsthand, you're going to really be a part of it. And I think that's the value in coming early, before all the W's start stacking up. Come early and then watch it happen.
And really be invested in seeing Iowa volleyball go on this journey to be able to move towards a top 25 program. We've got so much spirit in this state for our Hawkeye programs, and it is truly an exciting opportunity to be able to see the development on the ground floor of a program that can go ahead and move into the top ranks. And you've demonstrated your ability to do this at all of your stops.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that's the biggest bonus for anybody who starts getting involved is that you're in the biggest league by far. And if we're winning, we're going to have packed arenas, all right? In the Big Ten, all of them do. They're packed arenas. Get in early so that you're a part of that, like you said, that process. Because you're not only, when we get it going, you're not only going to see us on the news and see us on TV. You're going to be a part of that. Really, the beginning of Iowa volleyball, the first time to really do it, to get to that level. And so it's a great for someone looking for a sport to get into. It's the hottest sport in the country. More females play volleyball than any other team sport in the country now. It passed women's basketball about 6 years ago. So, wow. And in this region, it's, the club volleyball is just off the charts. So we're pretty proud of that the girls choose this sport, and I know they love tennis too. But
I have a daughter who loves volleyball,
yes.
So I know all about that, Jim. I do.
Nice.
It is something that is incredibly competitive, and that within the Iowa club level, just very, very high level.
It is, and part of my job is I want to empower our women. I want to empower them to become great teammates and leaders, and you're seeing it at such a huge volume now that players see this as a sport, a conduit to becoming, their best version and becoming great leaders as women. And that's what I enjoy about this sport too. Women have really gravitated to it, and we're the benefit of that.
Well, I'm going to ask you to come back and maybe bring one or two players with you. Maybe have you back before you guys get going next fall, because we gotta get to learn even more about what you guys are building, and we'll start next fall getting everybody fired up to get over there to Xtreme Arena. And I'm so happy you're here. I hope you and your wife love Iowa City and take advantage of all of the awesome things in our community. We're so happy to have you. And thanks for taking time today.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast. Thank you.
All right. Well, Jim, we will continue this as the years go on. And as always, go Hawks.
This has been HERkys Voice. The mission of the HERkys program is to help our Hawkeye community learn, support, and engage with Iowa women's athletics. To learn more about the HERkys initiative, visit herkys.hawkeyesports.com. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the HERkys Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.